Hey, what's up, guys? Ronin Man here. Hey, one of the things that divides men the most is the understanding that there are certain guys who are somewhat different than other guys. So let's call it alpha male, Chad, F boy, whatever you want to call it. I would say there's a general misunderstanding of men, and I think that if men understood themselves better and understood the types of men that exist, I think the world's a better place. And right now, I think society has taken the lead to kind of define men is, this is the way they are. And one of the things I see, one of the most common things I see in mainstream media is that Chad, okay, let's just call it Chad. Chad lacks empathy. So he does not care. He is somewhat of caricature is a robotic. He does not care about people's feelings. He is somewhat, I think somewhat dangerous. There's no question that anything that upsets societal's, basic, comfortable, standards is scary to society. And I think that this is one of the things, like in history, that has been not talked about, really not talked about. And I want to talk about it because I never considered myself that type of guy. I didn't want that label, I guess. I didn't want to be, I really truly did not, I wanted to do what I did, but I never wanted the label of being a Chad or being a F-boy or being an alpha male. That was never, even today, I don't like those terms, to be honest. And the reason why I don't like those terms, I guess, is because they're so misunderstood. So when you say those terms, society is putting a label that is so inaccurate, and there's aspects that are true, but it's mostly inaccurate, and it's mostly very derogatory. But actually, it's more. I want to explain it from my perspective, because if I look back at my life, there's no question that being with as many women as I've been with, there's no question that I'm in that category. Even if I don't want to be in that category, there's no question I'm in that category. So what is it? What the hell is it? And I tried to make this episode last summer when I was in Boston, but it just didn't come out right. So I'm giving it another shot here. And it is very, very complex. So I'll try to hit different aspects of it. And I think that all men will really benefit from understanding this concept. And there's been a lot of research recently about, apes. I forgot which ones. It's not chimpanzees. It's probably orangutans. No, not orangutans. What was it? I can't remember. Either way, there was a study of primates that said, it was a TED Talk. I can't remember the guy's name, but basically that alpha males are not physically the strongest. So they're not. If you look at the reason why they study primates is because it's so obvious, right? They sit on a higher part of the tree, things like that. Like if there's a mountain, he's on top, and the other guys, his assistants, are below, and there's very clear hierarchy that you can physically see. And there's a lot of other aspects too in behavior which are very obvious. So that makes it a good thing to study. It doesn't tell us, any study of animals doesn't really tell us about humans completely. That's one of the big misunderstandings. It gives us insight, that's all. It gives us insight that we can think, hey, does this make sense? Is this real? Because we are not monkeys, right? We are not. We have evolved way, way past that. Although we do share a lot of things, obviously, right? We share so many things with other animals, including, blood and eyes and ears and sense of touch and pain and childbirth and all this stuff, right? So what the studies have shown recently, which were I think very valuable, was that the alpha male is very good at negotiating and kind of getting people on his side. So not necessarily the physically strongest, but he has people skills, So that's one thing that I think until now, or until this research, the alpha male was always kind of understood to be this, I guess, physical dominant creature, But if you look at society, it's just not true. Like, there's a lot of dominant physical guys who are quite poor and doing very hard jobs. So it doesn't work in our society. One of my best examples is in Silicon Valley. The alpha males are 100%, well, venture capitalists sometimes, but the real ones are the ones creating the companies, and that's the programmers. So the ones that were good at math, right? The ones that were, logical, those are the alpha males in Silicon Valley, and they act it too. It's really obvious. They demand huge salaries. There's even guys who are like managers for them. What do they call them? Like agents, where they will go and get contracts. Like a NBA superstar. Okay, like a Kawhi Leonard will have an agent, right? Now it's his cousin now, but either way, they'll have an agent, and that guy goes out, gets offers, and then they take one of the offers. That's what the managers or the programmers do now for the top programmers, because these guys get these huge contracts, right? And they can't be trusted to negotiate them themselves, so they get a professional to do it. So what else is that's fucking? These guys are getting paid insanely well, in addition to stock options. They strut around town. You see them in their fucking killer cars and killer houses, and you see them doing the stuff that you want to do, right? You see them doing the Dan Bilzerian stuff, whatever that is, right? So alpha male is not physical. Alpha male is somebody who is able to work with other guys and get his team. So he's somebody who can work. He manages people, because the kind of concept was that he just physically dominates everybody and just. And society loves this one, by the way. They love to say guys are violent. Oh, they love this one. But if you actually look at, now finally a man studies primates, and what does he find is that it's very clear, and now it's totally obvious now that he said it, is that the ability to power does not come from one person. It comes from a group of people. It comes from support. It comes from other people helping, right? Somebody maybe guarding, somebody getting food, somebody, there's a whole thing, list of things that need to be done in any community. And the alpha male is able to manage that, right? So that's one aspect of the alpha male. The other aspect, obviously, is, let me just say, who is not an alpha male, but society thinks is an alpha male? One of the guys is, I think, okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Not that the guy was not a very interesting character, and I loved his book, and I learned a lot from that book. But Iceberg Slim, which I recommended this book at some point, Pimp, the Story of My Life. The reason why, when I read that story, is that I immediately knew he was not an alpha male. Right away, I knew he was not like me. Like, there's no fucking way, because he had a woman who was working for him, and she was not doing what he wanted. And so he got a clothes hanger, and he just beat her like crazy, Like, I don't know if it was the point of death, but it's a pretty gruesome part of the book. And that is definitely not an alpha male. That is a beta male behavior. So alpha males they don't get their hands dirty in that way. They're not going to do that kind of stuff. They're not going to have anybody else do it either, because that type of thing does not really work. It does not get what you want. You want to create, for example, in his situation, he wanted to get a bunch of girls working for him who essentially saw him as a dressing more elegant than them, and like he was like their manager. I don't agree with any of this stuff, but he had his, what do you call it? Now I'm getting a little bit lost on this guy, but basically, anybody who is an alpha male will immediately recognize that behavior as non-alpha, like 100%. Like, it's just not a strong behavior; it's a weak behavior. So what is this whole thing, and how does it all fit in? there's a couple of songs called Doctor of Love and things like that. I think when it comes to seduction and women, I think that society really, really has it wrong on this one, because I always saw myself as somewhat of a doctor of love. I came in and I did the dark deed that society didn't want to face. Is that essentially how I balanced, because I'm a very empathic person. I care about people. I definitely am working on it now, but I'm it's difficult for me to separate when I see someone in pain or difficult situations. It's difficult for me. Every night I walk home and I see these beggars, these kids that I know are kidnapped on the street, and it drives me insane. Really not easy for me. Whereas other people can just walk by. This is not easy for me at all. And I've tried various things to fix it, but it just keeps coming back. It's some kind of a mafia, so it's been the bane of my life in Asia, but I just can't stand that, I can't, it just seems so wrong to me. It just drives me insane. And I can't believe that everybody else walks by. I tell you, you walk down Soy 11 at night, you'll see it. And for some reason, I guess most people won't see it, I should say. They just walk right by, yeah. And they, whatever they think in their mind, but it's just not true. And I can't, so that part there was definitely not the case with me. And most of the guys that I ran with were similar. It's almost like a very empathic person, because in order to seduce women, you need to be empathic. Women see that in you, and there's some kind of a, I mean, of course, there's a lot of other stuff that the guy does, but they see that kind person inside, or whatever, and that has to be real. If you're gonna be, let's just call it a master seducer or whatever, there's no way you can trick women. Women are very, very smart on this stuff. They have insanely good instincts about this stuff. They can see who you are at that level. And if you don't have that, it's just that doesn't. But what does a doctor of love do? A doctor of love it's something that society doesn't want to think about. Is that women are basically bored out of their minds. They do. I mean, we talk about it like red pill is like women. They want to get married, they want to have kids, and they do this stuff, but it's not. In some ways, it's not to their benefit. It's not who they are. It's not really what makes them happy. Maybe it's the smartest thing. You might take a job that is, a very reliable, has a, pension and this and that. But that doesn't mean that it's what your passion is, what you really want to do. Women have a dark side to them. And that sensual side is something that is so hidden and so complex that even women themselves do not know and understand their own actions and behavior about this stuff. And this is one of the first things you learn when you start seducing women, is that they don't realize either how they feel and what they did and why they did it. Girls don't understand actually how their own minds work with this stuff. And I think that's part of the system, is built into the system. It's similar to a woman does not know when she's ovulating. Okay, so whether it's nature or God or evolution, whatever, has created a system where it's better for her not to know, for whatever reason, for some statistical, reason that it's going to make better babies. Whatever the reason is, they physically don't know. I mean, think about that. It's pretty crazy, really. You'd think, a lot of animals, they know, right? It's physically obvious, that they're ovulating, but women do not, and there's nothing physical. So there's something in us that just keeps this stuff secret from women. So if a woman didn't even know when she's ovulating, which is probably the most important, I would say, incident in her life, or thing that could change her life the most, she doesn't even know when she's ovulating. It's pretty easy to believe that she doesn't also understand this kind of dark side to her, this need that she has. And it's something that as a guy who seduces women, now again, I got to say this a million times because some of you guys are new to the channel or don't know me, is that this is not the way I live today. This is the way I lived my life in my 20s and 30s and even 40s, but not in my 50s. I've completely, my life has taken a different turn. And I think a lot of it, it's really common actually for guys like me to do this. So it's not like, oh my gosh, this is so unique. It's pretty common that your values change and what you want out of life really does change as you get older. You see life differently, and you have different needs at different ages too. There's certain need I needed in my 20s that just doesn't exist now. I don't feel that same need, and so, okay, let's see, where was I? So let me think here. I kind of lost my train of thought there. So seduction, you are somewhat of a doctor of love, filling a need that society is embarrassed about. Girls don't understand. Other guys are basically very uneducated about, and kind of nobody knows. Like, there's really nobody to ask advice about this stuff on. Truly, it's like so few people. Like, I was so lucky that I met a couple guys who really got it. And I've talked about a couple guys like Too Tall Chris, my friend. He was just absolutely a master. There's no question. Like, he was an absolute stone cold genius, like complete understanding. Like, it was just like talking to him was literally just like the heavens open and just sunlight comes down. He understood exactly what was going on. And so I learned a lot from that guy. Now, there's a lot of guys on the internet now who teach stuff, and they've learned things, but it's completely different than somebody who understands it. Although I do respect people that do try to improve themselves and teach. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's not like that. It's just that there's something different of genius. There's something that you get a different understanding that is incredibly valuable. It's something like a Richard Feynman, something like that. Feynman, his understanding of physics was beyond, it was completely abnormal, and so naturally he did things other people couldn't do, right? So studying somebody like that will give you an insight, right? And so what was Chris's, I guess, viewpoint is that he never told me exactly, but I think it's that you're kind of fulfilling a need for society in a way, and you're not. It's also a very sad and lonely role too, because you can't post on Facebook what you do. Like, you can't post because the women themselves can't face what they did, right? And even if they hear about it afterwards, it's beyond words, this shit. This is a central aspect of life that we don't want to admit we have. Humans don't want to go there. Like, we don't even want to face our deepest sensual desires. Like, it's way too much. And for guys too, right? It's just like, we don't want to even think about that. Let's just go to get a cup of coffee and have a beer. Like, let's not go into this dark side, because what am I going to find in there, right? What was going to be there? Well, girls, it's like for them, like they just avoid it like the plague. What the seducer does is more like a safe cracker. He comes in, and her job is to keep the safe closed, right? But his job is to outsmart the safe and uncrack the safe. Now, once he uncracks the safe, and this is where the metaphor falls down, is he gets in, and in the next, let's say, it's what she really needs. And so anybody who cracks that safe, anybody who gets in there is welcome, because her mind is like, I tried my best to stop this from happening. And, thousands or tens of thousands of guys have tried to do this, And here I am laying with this guy, and we just had a sensual night, and I'm laying here. This must be right. Like, that's her mind. Her mind just says, this is right. He belongs here. This is good. And then she might, like, in the morning or whatever, come to her senses and say, wait, I can't keep going down this path. Like, I had a woman, like, tell me, like, I can't meet you because I get lost inside you. I had women tell me that kind of stuff. Like, I get lost inside you. And then it takes her, she's not able to almost live a normal life because she's afraid that she's going to go too far. Like, it was, I mean, we're good friends. I mean, like, there's no problem there. Like, it was a great experience. And, like, I think she has a lot of gratitude, actually, because the seducer's job is to go in and get done what needs to get done. And I don't mean sex. I mean, like, way deeper than that. Get done what needs to get done, and then to be ignored the next day, essentially. Because the next day she goes back, she wakes up, and it's almost like a hangover. You come out and you're like, oh, wait a second. I have to, I can't be this persona in real life. I have to, get my shit together and go out and do the things that are good for my future, right? I have to do this. But at the same time, she smiles and she's happy. She's very happy that some guy came in and did what needed to be done and unlocked that and gave her, I don't think there's any words for it, really. I don't know what the words would be, but there's something that is needed, that women really truly need. And the seducer's job goes in and does it. And I think one of the biggest misunderstandings of a guy who seduces women is that he likes to, and I can understand why this comes up. Like, the idea is that he wants to cuck other men. Like, that's kind of his thing. Now, I'm not saying there are no guys like this that would really get off on this. But I don't think the true seducer gets off on this. That's my opinion. Or allows himself to get off on this. Because the whole persona is, you essentially are a doctor. You're coming in, you're filling a need, and you're going to be, I mean, I don't know if you call it discarded, but it is somewhat, because there's some kind of, this shit is almost spiritual. Like, you're almost like forming some kind of bond. Like, there are times when I feel like I have thousands of women ghosts that are around me. It sounds really weird, but I swear that there's a kind of once in a while I feel like that. Like, there's this kind of feeling. Like, I don't know. I can't explain it. But so what is, the role is not, you're not, it has nothing to do with you, essentially. Her need, okay, is there. And she needs, and there's something that has to happen. It's something very, very deep, okay? Like, I mean, not like so deep, like, oh my gosh. But I mean, there's other deep things, right? And even deeper, like, the love of a child or something, I mean, but that's the type of thing it is. It's something quite in there, and it's very secret, so it makes it seem more relevant or whatever. But so the guy, like, for myself, I know I had a rule, and I couldn't understand why I made this rule at the time, but now I understand it. I would never sleep with a girl that I knew the guy. Okay, so if he was my friend or I had met him, I just wouldn't do it. I just would not do it, and I would go out of my way to make sure I never met the guy, like because the guy she was with. Because all women are with the guys. Okay, no women, all women are single, but at the same time, all women have some guy. Okay, and they either have a boyfriend or like, a guy that's chasing them and they're emotionally involved, deeply emotionally involved, or they're married or whatever it is. There's no such thing as a true single woman that's attractive, okay? It just doesn't exist. There's ties and strings on everybody. Okay. And this is scary, actually, when you do have a girlfriend. You think about it. There's other strings, okay? She's not yours, right? She's got these other connections. It's like a web, like a spider or something. So I didn't meet those guys. I didn't want to meet those guys, and I never gave in. And I got to tell you that I had some very, very tempting situations that were really pushed my limits. But I just wouldn't do it. I would not do it because I was afraid what would happen if I went there. That might have been part of it. But I think that was part of it, I guess, is I didn't want to, I was scared of my dark side. Like, what was I going to become once I started to get pleasure from that? And I think that's something like, I have the same feeling about anything like S&M. Like, I've never done that. I've never been interested in that. But I'm a little bit afraid of myself on that because I've never done it, right? I'm like, what would happen to me? How would I react, right? It's a moot point because I'm not into it. But there was a fear of myself, a tiny bit. But I think much more than that, much more than the fear, although that was there. The real thing was I felt bad for the guys. Like I knew I was doing something that was necessary. But it's like a dirty deed, in a sense, to a guy. Although to a woman, it's very much not a dirty deed. This is almost like the core of the earth, or like the heat of like it's not something. It's a beautiful thing. It's a powerful force. It's It's part of the physics of the universe. Like, it's just there, But for a guy to go in and do it, you feel a little bit guilty. You feel bad. And like, I didn't have any desire to make fun of, or, that was not my thing. And I think the guys I've talked to who were living somewhat of a lifestyle like me, but were not damaged. There were some guys I met that were very damaged too. Like, they were molested by their mothers. And that was the beginning of, I guess, I don't know what it was, but they had some serious trauma over that. And then they became players, and they would tell me, so there's that type of guy who acts like a sociopath, but actually he's just he's a person who was very traumatized, who never got therapy or never got the help that he needed, right? That's a common thing, actually, for guys. They get labeled as these terrible guys, but actually, if you look back, if you get them to be honest, they'll tell you about stuff that happened to them, and you'll be like, holy crap, holy shit, are you serious? Like, you need to talk to someone about that. Like, otherwise this, and it's not easy for guys. Guys are just, this is a difficult thing for men, and society does not make it easy. So that was not it. It's like a ghost. You come in the night, you get it done, you understand how to do it, and you learn the tools through experience. But even if I tell you, you probably won't know how to use them or even understand. And if I tell the girl, like, hey, this is why you did this, the reason why we ended up here is this, and the girl, she won't really. I guess there would be a 1% or some percent of girls who would understand their own behavior about on this level, but I don't think that most girls, they didn't get it. And I had a couple of circumstances that were quite interesting for me. That kind of, there's so many that gave me the insights I'm giving you now. But I remember one was very interesting, very interesting. I met this girl, and then I was back in my 20s, and I can't remember what she looked like, but I suspect she was decent looking. And so I can't remember her name or anything, but we met, and I invited her to my house, and we met at the station near my house. We came back to my house. Oh yeah, she was a kindergarten teacher, and in Japan, a kindergarten teacher back in the early 90s was a very conservative. Usually, very conservative families would push their daughters to do that kind of job. There were certain societal norms in Japan So like the emperor met the empress playing tennis. There were certain things that you kind of had to do. Like tennis was an acceptable way for the emperor to meet the empress, right? There was a lot of these type of things. Japan was it was an old society that was just opening up. So there was a lot of like hangovers from this stuff. And one of the hangovers was very conservative, controlling families would get their daughters, especially wealthy families, like wealthy conservative families would get their daughters to teach kindergarten. That was a big thing. Now, whether they wanted to or not didn't matter. And whether their personalities matched or not was completely a different thing. But they would end up in these roles, and they dressed very conservative. They often had very little experience in life. They tended to be smart, well-educated, very disciplined type of people. And they got this job as teaching kids, and I think they enjoyed it. But I think a lot of the society's roles pushed a lot of women to be in that job that it wasn't right for them. That's whenever you have society pressuring people, you always have inequality and things that aren't right, that don't make sense, and that was one of them. Like I had quite a few kindergarten teachers. So, but this one in particular, she was really the most conservative type. Like I could just tell from the way that her mouth moved, the way that her body moved, everything was just, she was raised in a certain way. And so we walked back to my house, and this is the very first date. All I'd done is I gotten her number somewhere, and then we'd walked 15 minutes to my house. And so we got in the house, and I said, I started to, I looked at her. I don't know what it was in me. I just thought, I got to do it right now. You get an instinct for these things. And it just doesn't make logical sense, but I'm like, right now. So I started to sit next to her and kiss her. Usually I would do something like make pancakes or whatever. We had little things I did. But this time I just sensed no. Right away. So I did. I sat next to her, and I remember it was summertime and the windows were open because I lived in this really cheap place. When I first got to Japan, I had no money, and I was loving life. It was some of the best times of my life, but in that apartment. But so I had all the doors open and windows open, summertime, blazing hot. I didn't have an air conditioner, right? So I tried to get a little bit of breeze to come through my apartment. I had a fan, right? I had a fucking fan. So either way, so I sat next to her, and I tried to kiss her, and then she basically was frozen. She just sat there, and this was a very common thing in Japan back then, is women in Japan back in let's say, I don't know, until the mid 90s, they would pretend they would just freeze up when you kissed them. And it was the weirdest thing, because as a Western guy, you're like, okay, no thanks. She's not into it, right? She's completely not moving. They wouldn't even move their lips. And so an inexperienced guy would move away and say, oh, sorry. And then he would, not do it. And then she would chase him for 3 months because she was doing what society was telling her she was supposed to do, right? But actually, she wanted to be with the guy. That's why she went to his house, right? That was a common thing, and it takes a while to figure that out. I'm sure it's very different now in Japan, but back then it was really an interesting thing. And anybody who lived in Japan at that time will be laughing their ass off right now, because it's 100% true. And so I did that. So I thought, okay, I don't know, but she's just kind of frozen sitting there. So I'm like, okay. So I kind of tried to kiss her, and then she was frozen lips. And so I'm just like, okay, I don't know what to do. So I kind of leaned away, and then I thought, and then she just sit there. So I was like, I don't know, sometimes it's that's the thing with the whole Me Too movement is life is seduction and sexuality and humor and, things, love and things like this. They're just not logical. They're not by the numbers, right? You have to be in the moment to even grasp what's going on. And sometimes even if you describe a situation, no one else will understand, but only you and her got what happened that day, right? And so either way, so I just sensed something weird. So I kind of backed away, and I'm like, I don't know. But in my experience at that time, if she was not into it, she would have stood up or something. She would have moved away, or like she would have given me a signal, and I was waiting for that signal because I was like, what's going on with this girl? I couldn't figure it out. So I wasn't going to push it. I was going to sit there. So either way, I like, she didn't move away or anything. So I leaned over, tried to kiss her again and grab her hand or something. And then she like suddenly stands up and she looks at me and she like screams at the top of her lungs, like literally, which was really surprising because she was super quiet. She's like, "You think I'm some kind of a slut who's going to come here and 5 minutes after I know you and I'm going to fuck you," she says in Japanese, super loud, right? And I was like, I literally didn't know what to say. I was just like, and I'm just sitting there dumbfounded, right? And I swear to God, there was something about, she let out that burst, which for her was a big deal. She was a type of woman who conserved. I swear, probably 2 minutes later, we were naked. And we were having some of the most wildest sex I've ever had. I mean, it was absolutely animal. And I mean, literally, totally animal sex. And it wasn't just her, it was me too, because I was so surprised by this whole thing. Like, what the fuck is going on here? And it was really weird because the doors were open and all my neighbors could hear, And it was like, and then 2 minutes later, she's just like screaming at the top of her lungs, and we're just like screwing like animals. And it was great. And it went on for, I don't know how long, but it was one of those most memorable time in my life experiences. And so either way, so we finished, and she put her clothes back on, and I could sense as she put her clothes back on that she was transforming back into that personality. Looking back, at the time I sensed, because at the time I thought, here's what I thought, oh my God, like this one, I really unlocked this one. Like, she is unhinged. Like, this girl, there's nothing you can do. She wants it so bad, like, so there's nothing too much. And I was starting to plan for the future, like where we're going to go, what we're going to do. But then looking back, when she put her clothes on, there was a change of demeanor back. And our second date, I remember I was waiting in Studio Alta, and we had an appointment, and she was the type that would definitely be on time. So I'm standing there, and she doesn't come. And I was, and usually, if any girl was late to me at the time, I would turn off my phone and leave. Like, I was so strict about that because I didn't want to allow them to train me to be like some kind of a butler. So I'm like, nope. If you're late more than, say, a few minutes, say 10 minutes without sending a message, I'm out of there. And also, Japanese were like that too. They were very, if they had an appointment or, whatever the reason was, a date or business, they would always text like, "Oh, I'm late, the train's coming late." And I like that. I'm like that now. I think it's very important to communicate. It's okay to be late, but it's like you have to communicate like in advance. Don't wait till like 3:00 when the meeting's at 3 and say, "Oh, I'll be there in 10 minutes or I haven't left yet." It's like, no, oh shit, I just woke up. It's going to take me 15 minutes to get to the station, another 10 minutes to do this. Give an explanation, right? And then it's fine. That's to me, that's kind of the Japanese way, and I like that way. So, but if I didn't get a message, I knew that it was something unusual, and so I was like, no, that's not acceptable. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to get angry, but I'm just going to turn off my phone. And that's what I do. I turn off my phone, and I'd go to the gym or something. And that worked very well because often they'd call like 500 times, and they'd be like, "Why did you turn off your phone?" And I say, well, you were late, so I figured you're busy, And then she's like, "I'm not busy. I was just late. I was sorry." And it worked out fine. And then the second time they would be on time. So that was my general thing when girls were meeting girls. But this time was different. I could sense like this girl was different. Everything was different about her. So I was sitting there, no message. And I thought, I'm going to definitely wait for this one. So I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And after about 20 minutes, I knew, you just, and they've done studies that actually humans actually do have this capacity, and no one can explain it. I knew she was looking at me. I knew it was, it's Tokyo, right? So I don't know where she was. There was millions of people. But I know that I could feel it. She was staring at me. And I actually knew what she was thinking. She was thinking, okay, if I go with this guy, my whole life is going to fall apart. Everything, like everything I've been building, like the way I've been going in my life, is going to all fall apart if I meet this guy. And so she did not. And she did not come. And I just sent her a nice message. I can't remember what it was, but it was something like, I don't remember what it was, but it was definitely not a normal Ronin Men message, because I knew I was never going to see her again. And I knew that, and I did want her to know that I sensed what happened too. I got it. That was it was a meaningful experience for me too. And I was somewhat grateful to be a part of her awakening. I don't think I wrote that, but I mean, that was what I felt. I felt like it's almost like an honor, really, to be in this position with girls. Like there's an honor to it. I felt like it's an honor that when they open and they trust you that much, because it's not physical thing I'm talking about. It's much more than that. Physical is definitely a huge part of it. Absolutely. But it goes beyond that. And so, I always felt like whenever a girl opened up at that level, that I was grateful. I really am grateful for those experiences. And that's I think the ghosts that I see, feel sometimes with girls, is those girls, those ones that opened up to me. It wasn't like mean ghosts or evil ghosts. It's more like there is something there where they shared something with you that probably they might not have shared with anybody else. They might not just have that experience for whatever reason, because it's not something. It's not a physical. It's not exactly a physical thing. You can try to recreate it. And it might have been good that girl didn't meet me, because the second time I met her might have been very disappointing. Who knows, right? Hard to say. I don't think so. I think there was more jet fuel in that tank, personally. I think that rocket had plenty of fuel. That girl and me, there's definitely something there. If I was going to put a wager on that, but either way, but this is the type of mindset that I had, and because of that, there was a lot of girls who they knew, sometimes the girls would even tell me, I know what you are, but I accept that, because I was not the standard guy for them. So what a lot of pickup artists, chads, supposed, whatever you call it, alpha males, whatever, a lot of the mistake that I think happens inside guys' minds is they think that they have no empathy for girls. They think they have to, in order, it's kind of part of it. You do have to turn off, there's certain parts of your brain. You kind of have to, like, the societal switches, you have to switch off some of those. And so they think they're tricked, really, into thinking that is, but that is not the truth. Actually, you go even deeper into sensuality and into essentially some kind of spiritual type thing. If I could use a word, I don't like words because I speak different languages, and I understand that they're so limited. Words are so limited. But that's the word that Westerners would use. But I don't think it really explains it. But either way, so that is what my mindset was. And I think that if a guy is listening and is, say, like me, is I want you to know that don't allow society to pigeonhole you. Like, there is a role here. There is it's not, you're not tricking, you're not, and I think this is the main misunderstanding, is that you're tricking girls. This is a huge misunderstanding. You are not tricking anybody, okay? No way. Okay? You are unlocking a powerful, almost like when they first split the atom, and unleashed the power of the atom. That's more like what you're doing. You're unleashing this natural power which is there, and it is glad to be released. It's part of the natural. It's a setup, kind of. It's a setup, and so that there's no need to. I hope this helps you understand different types of guys better, because I think that guys are born a certain way. You can't grow into this, I don't think. I think learning and understanding it might give, you can comment in the box, might give you some experiences that you wouldn't have had before, which bring you in that world, and that's pretty cool. I think learning is like an amazing transformative thing, and there could be a guy who is like that but didn't know it, and once he understands it, he's like, oh, I didn't do that because I thought I had to be somewhat cold and evil. But what actually it is you're playing a role that the woman needs to be played. She has a place for you, okay? Women have a place for this, okay? A man like this. And now, it's not a big part of her life. It's a very small part. Maybe it's a meaningful part, for me it was, but it's not a big part. It's a bit part. And so you got to be willing to walk away too. See, that's the hard part, is you do form bonds too, and you have to say, you know what? I did my role, because once you overestimate your abilities, you fall into very dangerous situations. And I'll end on this. One of the most dangerous situations is for a guy who is good at seduction, who is like this, who's naturally like this, okay? And then he thinks that skill is going to help him in a relationship. And that's not true. The fulfilling the role that I'm talking about, it's very difficult to find a woman in the right position that is ready for this, right? Not every woman I was with. I'm just there's some women we're ready, we're in the right timing or mindset or needs or whatever the hell you call it. But you can't be like this every day. And you can't be like this for a woman more than once, really, probably. Like, I don't know if you can even be like this more than once for one woman. I think that women can fall deeply in love with you once you connect on this level. That's for sure. And that's like actually really common. But it's not the same. It's never the same. It was that one time. And after that, no matter how much she wants it to be like that, and you want it to be like that, it can't be like that. It's not something that can be recreated, made, manufactured, organized, orchestrated, And so you can't, by definition, you can't like have a wife or girlfriend where you are this man for her all the time. So that's the lonely part of this whole thing. And I think that's why I think a lot of the hatred that men have for other types of men is unfounded or it's just not right. It's unnaturally creating hatred amongst men. So I hope that this explanation, which I think is unique, and I'm trying my best here to explain it, helps men to understand other men, because you are essentially born what you are, and you do what you do. And the fear I think the average guy has is that this guy's going to come in and essentially steal his woman. But one, the guy wouldn't want to do that really. And the two, he can't. He can't be what he is and steal your woman. It's impossible. He could become like you, okay? And he could become, you know what I mean? He could lose that. He could choose that path. But that's a tough path for him, because he has to give up a lot of himself for that, And I'm not saying he has to keep doing seducing women, but to be in the kind of I don't know what you call it, like the family man role for him is really, it's a dangerous thing, I think, almost, I think a seducer is somewhat of it's a known, a necessary doctor but it's also somewhat of a lonely thing. And I think that, I have so many friends that are different types of guys, and I don't care. There's nothing, I have no like great affection for anybody who's like me or who isn't like me. I just see guys. I can see more guys what they are, And I did learn tons from my friend Chris, no doubt about it. But not every guy like him I would have felt that connection to. Like, he was really kind of a special guy, right? So that's why we became deep friends. And, but that I think the friendship amongst men is so important. And that's partly why I made the channel. Because I think that men need to have deep confidants and friends. And there's no need for the acrimony and kind of competition that the society creates amongst us. It's like we're all born what we're born, right? We are what we are. And now with the internet, we're starting to learn more about people and understand people, and less of the biased explanations and assumptions, like attempts to malign people, attempts to control people. A lot of these things are falling away, and people are starting to share what's really inside them, how things really work for them. And I think that is what I'm trying to do with this particular episode. So either way, guys, I hope that's been interesting, and I hope you guys have a good one. And oh, by the way, this video is of the beautiful Ambassador Hotel. So it's on Soy 11 and Soy 13. It goes between the two. And it's a very historical place. And I came here first in 1990. So I've seen this hotel over time. In 1990, it was full of Japanese. It was absolutely packed with Japanese tourists. And then in the 90s and 2000s, it was packed with Europeans. And now it's packed with Indians. And you can see it's like it's a historical treasure, this place. And it will be torn down. And, when you travel, I highly recommend you find things that have history, and not necessarily the standard history. This is a, painting that is historical, blah, blah, blah. Is to open your eyes about the mundane, cool things that are around you. And that's why I filmed in this hotel, because I think it's one of those things. And it'll be torn down soon because the land is so incredibly valuable. But I wanted to get it on camera and capture it for you guys. So anyway, Ronin Man signing off. Hope you guys